If you look at any list of the richest countries in the world, they will all tell you that the United States is the richest country in the world. But what does that actually mean? How do you actually measure wealth? Is it just the total amount of money that a country has, or is there more to it than that? And why does it matter? In this video, we're going to be answering these questions and finding out what the richest country in the world really is. To do this, we're going to be looking at a few different metrics for measuring wealth. First, we'll look at GDP, then we'll look at median wealth, and finally, we'll look at the Human Development Index. This will give us a well-rounded answer to which country is the richest. First, let's look at GDP. This stands for Gross Domestic Product, and it is the total monetary value of everything a country produces and sells on the market. It's usually measured in US dollars and it's adjusted for inflation. Now, GDP is a pretty good indicator of a country's wealth because it takes into account the size of the economy and the cost of living. So, it gives a pretty good idea of how much money people have to spend on average. By this metric, the richest country in the world is the United States, with a GDP of $26 trillion. The second richest country is China, with a GDP of $14.7 trillion. Now, while GDP is a useful metric for comparing countries' economies, it has some major drawbacks. For example, it doesn't take into account how much money people actually have. A country could have a high GDP, but if most of that money is controlled by a small percentage of the population, then most people will be relatively poor. This is where median wealth comes in. Median wealth is just the middle value of all the wealth in a country. So, half the people have more wealth than this, and half the people have less wealth than this. To calculate this, we would need to add up all the wealth in a country and then divide by the number of people. Then we would sort the list of numbers from least to greatest and pick out the middle one. Now this is a much better indicator of how much money people actually have. By this metric, the richest country in the world is Switzerland, with a median wealth of $316,000. The second richest country is Norway, with a median wealth of $282,000. But there's still one problem with this. Having money doesn't necessarily mean you're wealthy. You could be rich in dollars, but if you live in a city that has very high prices, then you may not actually have that much money. You could also be rich in a country that has a very low cost of living, but that doesn't really mean you're that wealthy. This is where the Human Development Index comes in. The Human Development Index is a metric that takes into account a country's wealth, but also factors in things like life expectancy, education, and quality of life. It's calculated by taking the average of three: a health index, an education index, and an income index. The health index is the average of life expectancy at birth, and the number of people who die before the age of 5. 2. The education index is the average of the number of years of schooling that people receive and the literacy rate. The income index is the logarithm of a country's per capita income. Now this is a much more accurate indicator of a country's wealth because it takes into account more than just money. It considers things like how long people live, how educated they are, and ultimately how good their life is overall. By this metric, the richest country in the world is Norway, with a Human Development Index of 0.95. The second richest country is Switzerland, with a Human Development Index of 0.94. So which country is the richest? Well, it depends on how you measure wealth. If you look at GDP, then the United States is the richest country in the world. But if you look at median wealth or the Human Development Index, then it's Switzerland or Norway. Ultimately, it's up to you to decide how you want to measure wealth. But hopefully this video gave you some insight on how to think about this question. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and watch another one.